Thornhill.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I find this an interesting debate. I listened with interest to the leader of the third party, for whom I have great respect, and I listened to her initial points, primarily that there is indeed a jobs crisis in the province of Ontario. We agree with that in the Progressive Conservative Party. That the McGuinty government has no discernible plan to address this jobs crisis, and we agree with that in the Progressive Conservative Party. And that corporate welfare clearly doesn't work, and we agree with that in the Progressive Conservative Party. So it's interesting how much common ground there is. So we have this motion before us, and the motion is, aside from everything else, a centerpiece that has survived from the election campaign of last summer, fall, a centerpiece of the New Democratic Party. And what it talks about is a refundable tax credit of 10% of annual salary to a maximum of $5,000. In other words, the top salary would be $50,000. And the job has to exist for the ensuing 2 years. That's a rather interesting number. I don't know that it does very much at the end of the day, but we'll talk about that further as I continue. And by the way, I listened with interest as well as the Minister of Economic Development spent about 10 or 12 minutes going through literally a litany, a long list of all of the various tax credits and grants and programs and funds that are available. And if he was so correct about those funds having the force and effect that he talks about, then we wouldn't be looking at this motion today. We wouldn't be weighing this. And there wouldn't be a motion from the NDP or a concern of us. There wouldn't be a jobs crisis if all of that had worked. So you know what, Speaker? A pox on both their houses, because neither of them's got it right. The NDP motion comes from the election campaign, as I said. In the election campaign, that party took great pains to position itself as centre-left. That's what it wants to be seen. That's a branding exercise. They're centre-left. The fact of the matter is they're not centre-left. They are a socialist party. That's what they are. They believe in the redistribution of wealth. This is an aspect of how to do that. What we live in the province of Ontario, it's a democratic socialist party, I'll give you that, but it's a socialist party. And it doesn't want to admit that what we live in the province of Ontario, indeed in the Dominion of Canada, is a mixed capitalist system where we all have the opportunity to take our chance, roll our dice, take our best shot. We also know that people who do go out and exercise that entrepreneurial right wind up oftentimes getting burned. This is what happens, and they try again. Many people in this House have done it. Some of you have lost. Some of you have won. Same thing for me. I remember very well in the early 90s when that party was in power under a fellow named Bob Rae, who I think he was in the NDP then, and now maybe he's a Liberal. We're not quite sure, but we know he's on the left. In any event, they had a program that was not so different from this one. It was called the Jobs Ontario Community Action Plan, and it was the acronym for that was JOCA. And it was, and that was, it was a joke in many respects. And I remember it well because I used it. And I'm going to tell you how I used it. I used it quite legally and legitimately. I had a small business. It was in its very early stages of infancy. In other debate yesterday, I talked about that period of time. I wasn't drawing any salary, so I would be happy for any kind of government help. But the bottom line on this is we were in a growth stage, and we were creating additional jobs. How were we doing it? We were expanding the capacity of our company. We were buying new equipment. We were building new premises. We were creating the conditions to accommodate additional staff. And along comes my partner one day and says, you know, there's this new fund that's been created by the Ontario government. I can't remember the number, but 10,000 seems to ring true. And they will give us up to $10,000 per job that we create. I said, well, we're hiring 3 new people. She said, I know, I'm going to apply for it. And we got $30,000. Wow. Okay, so I was thrilled to get that. I want to thank my friend from the NDP for the applause, because what he's not getting is I took the money because it was there and it was legal to take, but the bottom line is the money did not drive the development of the job. or the jobs. The jobs happened because of the hard work within our company and the fact that we used our own resources to expand. And the Economic Development Minister says I should pay it back. Too little, too late, my friend. The bottom line is that's what we did, and that's my point. If the government of the day, or the government of this day, said to a small business person like I was, here's what we're going to do. We're going to allow you to access small business loans on an easier-to-get basis, or we're going to reduce your energy costs. That's a very big deal in the province of Ontario. Reduce energy costs, and the company that I ran was very electronic, so we had energy costs that were significant, but they were probably 2 cents a kilowatt hour then compared to what would have to be paid now. So energy costs are a big deal. Suppose we had had an accelerated equipment write-off. That would have been a very interesting one. Suppose that we had been able to get tax credits against leasehold improvements or acquisition of furniture that accommodated people. All of those kinds of things would have helped because we had to do that anyway. And it was only by doing those things that we created the conditions where we could hire the additional people and in a very backwards way wound up claiming the tax credits. Actually, they were a payment in cash at the time, if you can believe it. No wonder they were in so much trouble with the deficit, but leave that for another day. Point is, there is a way to stimulate companies so that they create the jobs that you need. And it is not by handing them up to $5,000 in essentially bribe money and saying, look, here's $5,000, go hire somebody for an additional $45,000. That's not how you do it. It's never going to work. And with respect to my friends in the NDP, what I can say for that party is they have principles and they stand by them. I would hope to say that our party has principles and I stand by them, but at that point we begin to differ. So I don't know what it is that makes politicians want to meddle and dictate to citizens and businesses how they should spend their money and what they should do. But politicians, and I'll have to admit it, of all stripes, but today we're talking about that stripe over on my left, is trying to say to businesses, here's what we want you to do. Here's how we're going to meddle. We're going to give you some money and you're going to create jobs. It doesn't work, Speaker. No. It doesn't work. It must be the same mentality that makes it impossible for some people to avoid editing other people's work. You know, the way you read something and you say, you know, if I had written this, it would have been different. Well, that's what they seem to be wanting to do. And I have an inherent dislike, and I think anybody who's heard me debate almost any bill in this legislature knows it. The less government, the better. The less interference, the better. Create the conditions by doing whatever it is you have to in the tax system or any other code of laws to allow business people to thrive. Take away the red tape, take away the forms, let people do what it is I did and so many of you watching on television or here in this House have done. Go by your wits and create your business and take advantage of programs that are positive, that can influence the overall well-being of all of us in sectoral stimulation, rather than saying I'm going to give you a few bucks and you're going to go and hire some people. That's not going to happen. If we have learned anything over the past 8 years of the McGuinty government's rule, of the McGuinty government's time in power, it is a couple of things. Picking winners and losers doesn't work. I mentioned the speech earlier by the Minister of Economic Development, who waved a number of funds in front of us. You know, funds are great, but if they get us to a point where we have almost 600,000 people in the province of Ontario who are without jobs, what good are those funds? What are they doing? Telling businesses how to operate, telling them what they have to do doesn't work. We talked about the regulatory burden here in the province of Ontario. Maybe they want to give $5,000 towards a $50,000 job, and that job can be to fill out forms, because between that party wanting to do that and that party and its forms, this is where we are. We're in a situation where we have, what, 500, 600,000 regulations governing SMEs, small and medium enterprises, in the province of Ontario. You go over to British Columbia and you're talking about half that many. It's manageable, at least. Probably too many there as well, but manageable. Not for us. Corporate welfare, which I've been talking about, just plain doesn't work. We have, and on this, the NDP and our party can agree 100%, we have a very serious jobs crisis in the province of Ontario. We have jobs numbers coming out I guess it's this Friday, and my friend from Lambton, Kent, Middlesex, as our economic development critic, will be talking about that on Friday. And I don't like to bet against the province of Ontario. I never do. We all value this province. And I want to tell my Liberal friends that I hope that on Friday they end this horrible run that we've been through. Because for 63 straight months, this province has lagged the entire set of provinces and territories in Confederation on EI. And on Friday, I would expect, if the trend continues, that we'll be at 64. I will applaud if it's the end of that run. I can tell you that, Speaker. The way to fix the problem of the jobs crisis is to give businesses the tools that they need to create private sector jobs. That's how you do it. That means letting them grow, whether that means hiring new employees right away or investing in machinery, as I've mentioned, or infrastructure immediately now. Businesses know best what they need and when they need it. Businesses know that. Hear, hear. Businesses know that because businesses are run by people who have taken their best shot. They've taken all that God has given them intellectually. They've taken their training from elementary school right through to post-secondary, and they're applying it. And that's what we want to stimulate in the province of Ontario. Putting conditions on businesses, such as the condition the NDP is proposing, is only a short-term Band-Aid solution. It's a few bucks to go away. So if you hand somebody 10% of, take a median level entry job, $30,000, $35,000, the business is going to get $3,000, $3,500 a year for 2 years, and then it's going to be gone. That doesn't stimulate anything. Save the money and find a better way. That's what I have to say to my friends in the NDP. That's what I have to say to my friends on the government side. And I hope over the course of time in debates like this, we can arrive at a situation where we can all come together and figure this out, because 600,000 people going wanting in the province of Ontario is an inappropriate approach. Thank you very much, Speaker.